Hey everybody, Christopher here.
Hey guys, Noah here.
Hey everybody, it's Kim.
It's Kim.
It's Kim. Hi besties.
Kim not
Everybody
only
already knows you.
That's
Kim
so
not
cool.
only got to be the very first, guest star on, our actual mainline film episodes, but now she gets to be the very first guest star on Crooked Convos.
That's so exciting.
So why don't you just tell everybody a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah.
About me in general.
Yeah,
Well,
whatever you want to share.
Whatever you
okay.
want to share.
Well, I'm the owner, founder, CEO of Phantom Flame Candles. Um, I had to grab my merch since y'all were wearing yours. I was like, me too.
Well,
Uh,
I'm wearing our merch. Christopher is
oh,
not.
I just rolled in the door from work.
right.
What you see is what you get.
He's like, you've seen me wear it before. You know who I am. Well, I'm from Georgia, so I'm in Ohio now, and so a lot of the places, around here that you've been to, I haven't. When we went to FCI, I had been there before, but I didn't even know what room we were in at a time. We were talking, and I was like, "Oh, where's that?" You're like, "We're in it." I was like, "Oh, okay." Um, let's see. I've got two kids. They're awesome. They're amazing. They love y'all. Yeah, no, I am me. I don't know what you want to know.
No, that's fine. It's whatever you want. It's whatever you want to share. Getting to have you on the episode is really just an honor, just like the mainline episode. Which I guess disclaimer real quick for anybody that has not yet seen Fairfield County Infirmary resolving vendettas. Get out of here. Go watch it. Come back.
Go
Just
watch it.
y- yeah, go watch it. You're not gonna want to miss. You're not gonna want anything spoiled. It's a really crazy adventure that we had there,
So good.
and it's yeah. I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's pretty good.
I mean,
But
it's kind of my favorite for
I
no
wonder
reason,
why.
no reason whatsoever.
No, but
Well, it's
seriously,
special for me too because it's my favorite place. I'm so deeply connected to that place.
mhm.
Yeah. Well, and it's got to be really awesome for you to be in a place that is so familiar, yet at the same time something new could come in from maybe a location you went and investigated, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know this room, and then somebody comes in and you're like, wait a second, we have a visitor.
All the time.
It's been
Yeah.
different every time I've been there. It's been different every time.
It's different every time I'm there.
New room there now.
I do
He
have a
does.
new room there now. I moved down the hall.
So that's exciting because in a way you almost have to feel the energy, and like you knew the other room, you were comfortable, you had your own setup and everything, and then you moved and now it's like new neighbors, new moments, new creeks.
Well, I was led to the new room. I did let the spirits lead me to the room with the rods.
See, I love that you did that because you didn't pick it. They picked it for you. They're like, no, no, you're living here now.
And I verified it by doing it more than once. I had them show me more than one time.
See, that's so cool. I haven't done the rods. You did it with my daughter and she loved it. She said that you could literally feel them, pulling. And she said it was one of the coolest things she's ever done. And I said, "Yeah, I haven't done that yet." She's like, "Mom, it's so fun."
It is cool.
Hmm.
It is very cool. But yeah, so today we're just gonna kind of be recapping, as always, the video that has just been put up literally yesterday. And so I think I kind of want to start just with Kim. Kim, kind of talk about what your overall experience was, because you're really looking at this from sort of an outsider's perspective. And you know, whenever you went and did that investigation with us, you hadn't been with us to some of the previous locations, and this one was a really important one as far as like this whole sort of storyline that we've got going. And you were kind of just inadvertently
Fun.
thrown in the middle of it. And so I just kind of want to hear your overall thoughts about it for a second.
Yeah. It was amazing. I will tell you, going into it, I did not think it was going to be what it turned into. Like I was like, "Oh, it's going to be so fun. We're going to do." but you had already been, like you said, you'd already been to the locations. I've never even been to those locations. And to now watch it after we filmed it, because in the midst, it's like you're there and you're experiencing it, but there are moments where you'll see I'm gazing. I'm gazing at you, I'm gazing at Chris, and I'm just like, oh my God, just like watching, where it's like everything that happens is so authentic. And I really need to get that point across, because there is a way people could be like, oh, it's fake, it's this, it's that. Okay, and that's fair. But when you're there and you're experiencing it, and like us, we were in the dark, so that kind of, in a way, it ups the creepy element, but at the same time, it makes it so that you're blocking out all distractions. We can't see him. We can only hear the shh from afar because it's so loud. And when you're sitting there and you're asking a question, and immediate answer. I mean, no breaks, no nothing. Or you're sitting there and it's telling you something, and you just, it takes on a life of its own in a way. And you're sitting there and you almost forget that you're even filming, because you're so engulfed in what's happening. And from going from just a viewer at home, or, just someone on the sidelines, and then also now a participant, there is a difference, because it's so easy to debunk or, think of another reason why that happened. But when you're there and you're like, I can't explain that,
Right.
or we say something, and when Chris responded so quick, and we were like, okay.
Right.
Because there was one point where Chris started laughing, and we were like, why is he laughing? That's not comforting. Because all you saw was darkness, and you heard laughter coming from there, and it was like,
Right.
But I'd say the whole experience, and it was one of the most unbelievable and addicting things, because it makes you just want more. You want to learn more
Yeah.
about what we can't explain. You want to learn how y'all do what you do. I still cannot explain, even though I try. When people ask me, okay, so tell me what it was really like, and I go, they're not faking. And I know we're friends, but I'm telling you, I was fully prepared for y'all to be like, okay, listen, in this scene, we're going to have him slam a door. You're going to scream, like I was fully, I was going to go all in. I was like, I got you. But that didn't happen.
No.
And the other thing people don't realize is, when y'all took breaks, right? You would take a break and be like, okay, we need to talk about something, whatever. You're actually sitting there still talking and saying, no, the spirit said this, or the entity said this. We have to go to this room because there's something going on. We need to figure it out. Da, da, da.
Right.
And it's like, oh, so you're not just like, okay, cut camera break. Okay. Whew, okay. And scene, no, it's like, it's 100% real. And I said, I will die on that hill. That would have been really good if I didn't stutter. I will die on that hill. The other thing that was really funny was when you are in the moment, time is so different, So what, I guess we sat there for hours. I mean, we were hours. And it did not feel near as long as it was, because
Right.
it's so engaging. So when you're editing and you're trying to cipher through all this stuff, I don't know how you do it. Because when we were there in the moment, it was like so much happened, but like there would be times where, you're just sitting there and it's like, how do I say this? It's a shame we can't get across the intensity. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
when it gets quiet, it's a different type of quiet. It's not just like, oh, it's quiet in my house. No, it's what's about to happen.
Right. And I think that too, like back to like what you were saying about how like time works differently in an investigation.
Yeah.
That's very true. And it's also, I think, what makes it so challenging. I don't have time for this. I don't think it, like, sometimes it's what's challenging in the editing because we're sort of doing something, and then immediately afterwards we're sitting there talking about what just transpired. It's like the video can't be 10 hours long with what we
Right.
just cut. So like the amount we're talking, because it really is like what, from the moment we get there to the moment we leave, we're just engulfed in whatever it is that we're doing. And
Yeah.
so at that point, I kind of have to figure out where to cut and where not to cut, but still tell the story of what happened that night as seamlessly as I possibly can. And that's something that I think I'm not perfect at. I'm getting a lot better at it. I have a lot of improvements to make, but I think with this one, when I watched it back, I think it did kind of come together.
Yeah.
I think it came together the way that it really did happen, and the whole story was told. But part of the other cool things that we'll get to talk about today is kind of like what are some of the things that happened that didn't make the episode, and we'll get to that. But real quick, I do want to ask from Christopher's point of view, like, because that building is so influential to you and stuff like that, just, you know, kind of what were your thoughts about that investigation there?
It's always hard when something or an energy that's that dark slips through the cracks and makes its way in there, because I mean, those spirits there do mean so much to me. I've spent so much time getting to know who they are and what their stories are, that sometimes it's just really hard to not instantly just become pissed off and want to remove whatever it is. That's not always the answer, because it has to be done in a certain way. And that's very much what this was.
Yeah.
It was dealing with it in a very, very specific way.
Right.
And once we've gotten through everything, I'll share a few more thoughts about that too. I've got something that I'm hanging on to for a bit.
Well, it's like even from the first part of the tarot card reading, it very much, we keep getting reminded that that we have to keep our emotions in check. With these energies that are there, that is a huge part of what is going on. We have to control our emotions, and we've sort of also been led down this idea or this road that different entities feed off of different emotions and different energies. And this particular one seemed to feed off of anger itself. So that was the thing that we sort of had to remember, was that it's easy in that moment to get upset and get angry because it's affecting something that is so emotionally connected to you. But that's the point, and that's like, you got to keep that in check. You got to remember that. Like, so I think that was a huge part in what kind of transpired as well.
One thing that really stood out to me was something said about grief being one of the emotions.
I don't think in this episode, but at one point there was something that was mentioned about grief. But
there was something in this one that got my attention that direction. I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah, I'm not 100% remembering. I'm not 100% remembering, but that also might be because we also went back to Fairfield, and while that one, whenever we go back, it really won't be a full-on episode like this one will. It'll kind of get put with something else, because it kind of like is important to the overall story, but it won't kind of fit as a episode on its own. But that one dealt a lot more with grief rather than, I think, this one. So it's kind of like, too, like, are we kind of blending the two? Because of all the like locations that we go to, obviously we're at Fairfield the most.
Right.
Well,
when I go back and watch it again, I'll know instantly what it was that sent my mind that direction.
I'm trying to think. There might have been. I guess I can't remember what it would have been.
Did Jane use that word?
I don't know if that was connected to Will. I think that maybe would have been what, like, there was a part of Will that was like experiencing grief, but a lot of Will's story we weren't really ever told, and the main part of that was just more of, we knew that what was more important about Will was more just that he enter his healing process. We weren't
Right.
really told much information about Will, which I don't know if that's just something that we have to revisit at a later time or what. But yeah, that was the part that like we never really got a straight answer on who Will exactly was and what his story or his full story was. But we were just told, hey, you got to help him. This is what needs to happen, and he needs to start his healing process. So might get revisited at a later time. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
I guess there's a lot that I'm hanging on to in my mind right now.
I'm always holding on to things in my mind because I feel like my mind goes a million miles an hour with all the different things that I theorize about. So I understand that. Because I'm thinking, like, for me, it's like a lot of times my mind is on like the things I'm researching, and then there's the side of me that's like constantly thinking about like editing, and I'm like, how do I do this or how do I do that? And I'm like, so I feel like my mind is constantly getting pulled in different directions.
I understand.
Whatever happened, like after when you were holding on to the doll, you know, you had to trap something in there. What'd y'all do with that doll afterwards?
It's still there in that room.
Is it really? Okay.
It's still there, right where it was to start with before I got the brilliant idea to move it upstairs.
You know how they say if you do reconstruction on a building, like it can amp up spirits?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think if moving objects, like not even so much intentional, but like you maybe want to show somebody something, or in this case you moved it, do you think that can also heighten the new activity or more intense activity?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I think there's examples like I know this is something that like not necessarily on camera you talk a lot about, but I know that you've talked about this a lot off camera, is you'll go into certain rooms at FCI because you know those spirits so well. You'll see a spirit that maybe their chair is moved in the wrong place, and you're like, they hate that. They want it back the way it's supposed to be. So like, absolutely, they're kind of. I think that's the thing that the more and more that we're kind of getting into this, that we're sort of realizing that I think sometimes when people look at the paranormal, they really try to separate spiritual entities and how they act versus how we act. And it's kind of like what we have to remember is these are people. You just can't see or hear them because the way that dimensions work and the way that we theorize about them is that they're still living in a sense. It's not the way that we think about it because we live here in the third dimension where everything is physical, but like they're living in another dimension, the fourth dimension, in which we can't see or hear at the same rate that obviously we're speaking at right now. But like they're still experiencing these things, and it's just the communication between the two is sometimes muffled and sometimes not lining up and stuff like that. But like they have emotions about things just the same way that we would. Like if somebody came into my like think about it in this sense, it's like if you're at your house, right, and you say it's haunted and you have something that gets knocked over, that kind of irritates you in a sense. Like, hey, don't mess with my stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of the same sense that I think we kind of have to remember is that like they're just like us in that sense. Like they want things a certain way, and when you mess up their stuff, what they claim that's theirs, it's going to irritate them at times.
Yeah, I always had this theory, and I don't know if obviously I don't know if it's real, and I won't know if it's real until the other side. But I always wondered if, like, you know, when someone passes on and we're like, oh, there's a ghost, you know, whatever. What if we're the ghost? And like we're like when you're passing on, like you're actually like moving into where something else is, but like when we're trying to sit here and be like, you know, oh, something got knocked over or whatever, it could just be a whole different timeline, dimension, or whatever. And somebody else is living in our space and we're the ghost to them, just like they're the ghost to us. Wouldn't that be crazy? That'd be kind of crazy.
It could be. I mean, I'm open to all sort of ideas and possibilities.
That'd be so wild.
Makes me wonder too, like right along the lines with moving furniture, how it can upset the spirits, upset the energy, how they feel. Now, I know this doesn't happen at FCI because we take our history very seriously. But I think sometimes in other locations, history might be represented, or sometimes a website might rewrite itself, and all of a sudden it's inaccurate. Did I just go there? Oh, no.
You did.
No, Christopher, behave yourself. I don't even have the hat on. That wasn't Zeke. I can't blame him.
Yeah, you just went there.
Share with the class.
I mean, without giving sort of context behind without giving context behind that, because I'm really trying not to stir the hornet's nest before I guess we have more to go on, but you're 1,000% right. I think history is very, very important with all of these things, like, and misrepresenting history. When I agree that with the place that we're sort of referencing without referencing, whenever it is so blatantly wrong and it's so easy to correct that, because I understand, like, there's some pieces of history that, like, it's not so easy to get access to and understand what is, like, what the actual history was.
Right.
But whenever you have something that is so documented in multiple sources and it's very, very famous and very well known, there's no reason that your personal website for the actual location should be wrong. And whenever it is wrong and then it's also not addressed once it's been shown to you that it's wrong, now I think we have a little bit of an issue. But
there's some paranormal.
You went there. I didn't go there. I just want to put that out there now. You went there, not me. You're the shit stirrer today.
You got some paranormal tea y'all want to spill, and I'm here for it.
Jeez.
It'll unravel itself in its own way.
It'll unravel itself. I'm not ready to get into that conversation quite yet.
That's a future.
I'm just mad that I can't blame Zeke. That was all me.
That was you. You have no one to blame, and nobody was going there. You just went there.
Couldn't even just stop and go, no, Zeke.
Let's get back on topic of this week's episode. Jesus.
So back to that reading we did.
So good.
I actually had anxiety watching the reading. When I watched the video, the reading, I was tense. My shoulders were up. My chest was tight. It was so heavy.
Why?
It was just heavy. Everything that came up, everything we talked about, it was... Every card that was turned had importance to it. And I guess just in sitting there and watching it unfold, it just really hit me hard.
I think it also, too, is like whenever you're sitting after the investigation has already happened, and when you go to look back at the reading and you're kind of like, wow, that was more spot on than I think we even knew at the time, that's what kind of adds to that experience a little bit.
Right.
And also, the other part about it that was so weird about that reading in particular wasn't even the reading, it was the damn flies.
Exactly. We were there and there wasn't any, not one. And then we go in there and it swarmed. And it's not, they don't come out at night normally.
No. I've never had that happen. Not at that level, not at that weirdness. Like, even other locations that we've been after that, I have not had that particular thing happen again. So, like, that really was weird.
And the fact that I just had that experience in the monkey room a week or two earlier, I was by myself in the room and there were just flies everywhere.
That's crazy. Well, and it's like I was saying, I was sitting behind the cameras, y'all are doing your thing, and they're swarming y'all, and they're swarming the camera, but they didn't come past the camera, like one or two stray, but like they stayed with y'all. That to me was really creepy because I was like, oh, they're gonna, just be all over the place and we'll be like this. It didn't go past the camera, which is crazy.
Yeah. I don't even know how to explain that.
That's what I'm saying. Certain things like that you can't explain. And unless you were there and you can, show people, they're seeing them land on his hat. They're seeing them land on his arm and stuff and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but they didn't move from there. Like they stayed with y'all. I've never seen anything like it before.
I haven't really either.
No, that was new to me as well.
Every experience that you get something new each time.
Very true.
You build from it.
Very true.
For sure.
I did like the bantering that we were doing to break up the intensity, because again, people don't understand how intense. Now, see, you don't care. You will antagonize them.
Oh.
And I'm sitting over there going, it's okay. You don't have to. And he's like, show me what you could do. And I was like, if you get drug out this door, I don't know what to tell you. But the coolest thing is when you're watching Estes in person, okay? Again, I really cannot stress this enough. You hear how loud that thing is on the other person's head. And I got to wear the headphones, so I know you can't hear, and when the voices are coming through or the noise is coming through, I mean, he's a professional at it. He can ream it off and he'll change into whatever he's hearing, which is amazing. But when you're asking a question, and he was across the room, we couldn't even see him because it's pitch black. And I only could barely see you, and you were right beside me. And so when he's across the room, he definitely can't hear us. He's got the blindfolds on, and you're sitting there asking questions, and he's just like, talk, or he starts laughing, and all we see is sheer darkness, and laughter is coming from it. And I'm like, yeah, that's not comforting. But it gets so intense that you're just like, okay. And then you say something, you break it up with laughter, and you don't even mean to. It's like when you get nervous. When I get nervous, I start laughing. When I get nervous, I'll make a joke or something.
Right.
But it was that much needed. Okay, we can breathe again. And then boom, something would happen, and you're like, that's different.
Yeah, I don't think people often realize whenever you're sitting in a space like that and you're doing this type of stuff, you can feel the energy in the air when you're doing it. It's a lot easier to look at it behind a TV screen and kind of be like, oh, it's easy to say, like, oh, I would go and do that, until you're there. Right. So I think that's also part of the experience as well. Like, kind of like you said, like, I don't know, like, I guess I just don't care a lot of times when it's those type of energies. I don't know. I'm very good at the confrontation.
You definitely caught me off guard when you're like, because he yells out, look up, and I was like, oh, okay, and you're like, no, and I was like, why? And I'm not gonna do what you say, and I was like, okay. And then he's like, come on, do it. I'm not scared of you, and I'm like, okay, I'm right here. I'm bracing myself.
That was really based upon previous experiences that I had where I sort of in my when I was a little bit more of a rookie in investigating, there was a point in time, and this actually was at the Madison Seminary, where we kind of talked about how I unintentionally opened a portal when I was there. That actually was a result of, in that point in time, I was doing all these sets of things that the entity was like laying out for me to do. And I very naively followed what it wanted me to do. And what I didn't understand at that point in time was that I was energetically creating a portal, and I didn't even realize it at that point in time. So I sort of later down the road understood that for some reason, I can't really explain 100% why, but whenever you do these sort of things, when they lay them out for you and you just do them, you're kind of being their puppet in a sense, and they're getting you to do things that you don't realize that you're doing. So to battle that, it's more of, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. You don't have power over me. You don't, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I think the biggest thing that I found is when it comes to these energies, a lot of times you'll see people interact with them and they do kind of get nervous or they get kind of intimidated by them. And it's kind of like you have to muster that sort of courage and understand that they don't have power over you. That's a manipulation. Whenever they start telling you all these things, like, I'm going to do this to your family, I'm going to do that, it's like, no, you're not. You're bluffing. I'm calling your bluff right now. You can't do shit.
Yeah.
Like, you just want me to think that way, because the more and more that they get you to think that and believe that, you're getting scared. They're feeding off that energy. But if you call their bluff, you'll see, just like you did in real life, they're like, shut up. Stop talking. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to. I'm calling your bluff right now. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I think is cool. I think you got to experience that firsthand and got to see that, like, kind of like, as you said, kind of comically, but like, it's not scripted. It's just, that's just what is happening. That's what's happening.
And that's the thing is, like, I tell, anybody that'll listen to me, I will tell them, 'cause I just talk. No, it's pretty wild to actually be there, see it for you. That's why I tell people, I was like, you don't have to listen to me. You can think I'm saying what I'm saying because they're my friends. You can do whatever. Go with them. I've told people, I was like, if you contact them and you want to do an investigation with them, I'm sure they can, work something out with you.
We're open. Yeah, we're open to it. And that's why, like this Friday, we have our very first event at the Thurber House where people are going to be there to investigate with us. It won't be filmed because, like, we try to kind of be in the moment with people. Right, yeah. Like, we try to be in the moment rather than filming, because as you kind of got to see firsthand, there's a lot of stressors when it comes to filming. There's a lot of moving pieces that you're kind of like, I got to pay attention to what I'm doing because I'm filming an episode. But we try not to do that for events because I want to be there with people. I want to talk to them. I want to know how they're feeling and stuff like that, and really get to experiment with them and stuff like that. But that's where we're kind of like, just reach out to us.
Yeah.
We will make something work. We're planning all these different events. We have all these investigations. If we can get people out to experience this, like, I want people to love this stuff the way that we love this stuff. And I'm open to anybody joining us. And if you think something's not real, come out and try it.
Right.
Come out and try it.
Well, that's the best way to, to say it is really, it's like, we're never going to sit here and be like, no, you have to believe because I believe. So you just have to. No, I'm totally all for, okay, you're skeptic or as long as they're respectful. Okay. You can disagree with me all you want. Yeah. Just keep it respectful, because it's like, just because I believe in something, I've experienced something, whatever, and you haven't, doesn't mean that I'm always right or you're always right. It just means be respectful. But before you can 100% write it off, you go experience it, right? But go in with an open mind, because if you go in with any thoughts or whatever, or I can debunk it, then you're not going to get anything out of it. And you're almost robbing yourself of that opportunity,
Right. You have to be open to all possibilities, because the moment you close yourself off, you're not going to be willing to accept anything that you don't have preconceived.
Yeah. And it's such an amazing experience. It's like to be in a place and be like, you're the only ones there. You are. And you don't have things turned on. It's not the pipes bursting, and it's not the, windows creaking or whatever. It's like certain things happen and you can't explain it. It's kind of a cool experience, as long as it's not scary, but it's kind of cool.
I think it's cool even when it is scary.
Right?
I think the only time that I actually really, besides that thing, talking out of nowhere, because it just came out and it said something, I was like, but outside of that, the coolest thing that was, I heard the cage squeaking, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know there was a cage down there. I knew the jail that was upstairs. I didn't know there was a cage down there. So he kept saying, Chris kept saying, cage. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said it and I heard a squeak. But I was like, All right. I didn't say anything. And then we were talking, and then he said it again, and he said it again, and I heard it. And that's when I asked you, did you hear that? And you said no. And I was like, my heart rate started going. And I was like, okay, listen, I have heard that thing twice now. I didn't say anything, but I'm saying something now. And it's
Right.
kind of cool. Then when we get there, the door is a metal freaking cage, that would squeak. So I was like, see, I heard that. I didn't even know
Right.
it was there.
Right. For sure.
So
Um,
cool.
a part that I kind of want to like hear from Christopher's perspective, because this is a little bit more of his realm of things. I kind of want to skip a little bit to the part of the video where we were doing more of like the energy work and then trapping the negative energy and the spike. I kind of want to hear a little bit from you about that perspective, because that's a little bit more of your expertise on this side of stuff.
Well, that was the first time in watching it I really got to see what you did that night. So that was really cool to see that. For myself, when I was doing what I was doing, all I felt was focused. I was so focused on that moment, on going to that mirror, on getting that done, on undoing what I had unintentionally done. I love how getting rid of the spike tied in with the energy created by my experience of burying the bat. I love how that just kind of came together, and that makes sense to me. I'd forgotten about it until I watched it back.
Right.
That was actually really cool to think back on something that happened a year ago and how we were able to still use that energy.
Right.
That's something I'm going to be hanging on to for a long time. How many times we seem to be called back to a location, keeping in mind certain things that happened and how that energy from then might affect what's happening now, even if it's not specifically connected.
Right. Right. I guess another thing too, that like obviously as people will watch the episode, they'll kind of get to see, they'll obviously get to see what that story was on screen. I think what I kind of want to focus on for a little bit is more of what were some of the things that happened that didn't make the video. And as we kind of talk about it, and I want to hear like from people's different perspectives on what happened that wasn't put on camera, we'll be able to kind of talk about it, and then I'll be able to explain why it wasn't put in the video, or you know what I mean?
The fact that for half the night I was just completely off my game.
Yeah, that didn't really make the episode.
What do you mean you were off?
I was so off for like the first half of the night. I think there was even a moment where I snapped out of it and I was like, fuck it, I'm back.
Yeah, there was a lot of that actually pretty much that whole storyline was kind of cut from the video. And I think the most basic answer to that was the video would have ended up being like 3 to 4 hours long if I was to include that. So that doesn't work, first of all. But second of all, also because like as kind of Kim brought up earlier, in a sense, a lot of times, and this comes too with just as we're kind of coming in our own, not just editing, but also just film making itself. A lot of times we'll be filming and sometimes the cameras get turned off because we'll just be conversating about what just happened. You know what I mean? We're kind of filling you in on what the Estes method said and stuff like that. And I'm kind of like, I'm trying to save, whatever. And I'm like, I don't need to go through this because like, I just saw what happened. You know what I mean? You'll see it. So I don't film those types of things. And sometimes part of those conversations are in those sort of conversations. And, some people would say like, oh, we'll still film that. And it's like, I don't disagree with that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, as if you've ever edited anything before, it's kind of like, you're not going to show everything that happened. You just can't.
Right.
It's not everybody's going to want to watch 10 hours worth of us just sitting there conversating about the very thing you just saw us do. You know what I mean? So for that reason, that's why a lot of that was sort of cut, because in order to tell the story, when I was editing it, it was kind of like, I don't think it was quite as needed, if that makes sense. Like, I remember that as being like part of it, and that's what added some of the personal experience being there, because it was weird. But for what we were tasked to do, we were able to do it, and we were, you know what I mean, it was still able to do it. I think still,
Right.
even just watching it, there's parts where you might even notice it. So I think that's kind of cool too, in the sense of, I don't think I should have to tell you, because if I have to tell you, I'm almost trying to convince you
Right.
that this happened, rather than like, just watch it. And what experience did you have watching it? Like, what did the film speak to you? Like, how did you feel watching it? So I think that's something I try to do as well. Like, obviously we're telling a story, because that's just the way in which we do things. We tell a story based off of what happens to us. But I really try to not be over forceful in like what message I'm sending to you. It's kind of like, I want to tell the story, but I want you to come up with your own sort of takeaways from it.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, I know that when I forgot my phone in the monkey room, that was crazy. And because we did have on there that there was 2 missed messages, right? Or 2 messages didn't go through or whatever. I didn't have my phone on me for like 45 minutes. And because I was thinking about it too. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, where would that really fit into play? Because it was a weird experience. It was. But once
Right.
I started watching it, I was like, there really wasn't room to throw that information in. Even though it's great captions, it didn't go with the storyline. It wasn't really meant to go with the storyline, obviously, but
Right.
it's
And
like,
some of that too was like, some of that again wasn't filmed in the proper way in which that particular, because it was cool. And I think what we should do is take a second to really explain what happened in that moment. And so it was more from your perspective, because you forgot your phone in that room when we went to go film somewhere else. And then when we got back to that room and you got your phone, you're like, all of a sudden, like, somebody sent messages.
Yeah.
Like,
So
so go ahead and tell that
right.
for a second.
Yeah. So what had happened was when we were in the monkey room, we were sitting there, and you're in the Estes, and it's going back and forth, and then we ended up leaving that room to go to the cage. And I actually noticed when I was walking, I had my cup, but I didn't have my phone. My phone goes with me everywhere. It was on airplane mode because I didn't want it to interfere with anything, so I couldn't really use it. But I always keep it close. So anyway, didn't even notice it until we got to the room, and I went to pull it out of my pocket, and it wasn't there. And I said, I think it was to your dad. I said, oh my God, I don't have my phone. I said, I forgot my phone. And I was like, well, it's okay. It's okay. Because I wasn't going back by myself. That wasn't happening. So we were sitting there, and after we had the session in there, as we're walking out, Chris said to me, he's like, did you want to go get your phone? And I said, well, I do, but I want to see where this is going, And he was like, yeah, me too. So we went upstairs because that was the next spot. And between there and upstairs and everything else, and then when we come down, it was about 45 minutes. And I walked into the room, and I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, cool. And I got it, and, I put it in my pocket. When we took a break, I had the phone sitting beside us, and y'all talking about what just happened, making a game plan and everything. Like, you're like, okay, we got to figure this out. This one wants us to figure it out. And I was just sitting there, and my daughter was like, oh, who'd you try to text? And I was like, nobody. I was like, I have it on airplane mode. It wouldn't go through anyways. And she's like, well, no, 2 messages went through. And I said, okay, well, I wouldn't have got them. And she's like, no. You sent it. And I go, I didn't even have my phone on me, So I look at it, and I touch it, and boom, the messages were there. And I was like, how did that happen?
Right.
Yeah, I remember. Lunging
that's
at
probably
y'all.
that's probably the major thing that I wish could have been in the episode, because it really was in the moment just a cool,
It was.
unexplainable thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just unfortunately the way that it sort of happened.
Right.
And there wasn't, even if I would have tried to put what we had about it in there, I don't think it would have done it justice. I
It
don't think it would
didn't
have.
work.
And yeah, like we weren't there to film that. Some of the conversation was kind of mixed matched. I think it also kind of like you said, with the way that it kind of flows,
Yeah.
I think it kind of would have taken it out of it for a second.
It wouldn't have made
Um,
sense.
right. And so that's where I'm kind of like, I think for that moment, that
It,
was just another really cool moment for you, especially because you're in the moment
yeah.
and you're trying to basically comprehend all these crazy things that you're witnessing. And that
Right.
was just yet another thing that for you personally proved to you that the paranormal stuff is real, because there was no way to fake that. We were
Right.
all in this. We were all in the same room together.
Right.
Nobody did that.
Right.
Your phone just did that. There was no way to really explain that. So that was sort of just I think, a cool personal moment
A
for
cool
you.
souvenir.
Right. So, and I think that's what's important too for people, is like whenever you're going out, like, yeah, it's cool, and sometimes for people it's scary and stuff like that. But I think the thing that people need to remember is go out and have fun. This is it's cool. Like,
Yeah.
go have fun with it. Like, don't sometimes get caught up like with some of the scariness of it. Sometimes you got to push past that and like remember, like, some of this stuff is cool. Like, and then you got a cool story to tell afterwards. Like,
Exactly. And that's the best part is it's like, it's really I think that's a perfect way to describe it. It's not even always for, look, I can prove it. I can prove it. It's, dude, do you remember when that happened? Yeah, I still got that. You know what I mean?
right.
It's like the moment that the three of us remember, and we're like, we were there. We know it was real. We're not looking to prove it to anybody. We already know. And every time I think about it, or I can, because I screenshot it and stuff, I was like, I
Right.
was like, it's just, and the thing is it's not the only time that I believe it's not the only time something like that'll happen, because there's too much or too many places to explore, and there's too many things to investigate. And plus, Chris can help me out with this, but I believe every place you go to, every location, not only obviously it has a different storyline and it has different spirits. I think the spirits react to people or based on energy, not just, like, oh, there's a new person, let's go scare them. It's like if you come in and you're angry, or you come in and you're such a skeptic or whatever, they might be like, you know what, I'm not wasting my time, because you're not going to believe me anyways. But if they see somebody coming in, they're like, okay, I feel like, they're more open to it or whatever, and non-threatening, then, yeah, it might seem scary because it catches you off guard. But if you actually dissect it, some of the things aren't as scary as people make it out to be. And other things are, but there's a reason behind it. Like Chris, he'll sit there and he'll be like, it's not an evil person. Like, remember the teacher at Post Town, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody kept calling her evil, 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 and you're like, she's not though. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm not gonna give that away. I'm just saying, like, that was my little sneak peek. That was my little sneak peek. But I started thinking about it after that moment, because I was like, I personally never thought about that what we perceive as evil, and I'm sure it's out there. Absolutely. I totally believe it's out there. But it
Oh,
doesn't
it's
mean
out
every single thing. I mean, it could just be like a grouchy ghost. Like, there could be a grouchy ghost and they are misunderstood, and now they have eternity to be miserable, So, they just want to be like understood and heard. And not everybody has the abilities y'all have to be able to help them the way that they need to be helped. So that's the other really cool thing that y'all have, is you come in, and between the two skills that y'all possess, you can almost, whether you can see them, hear them, feel them, whatever, what one of you is missing and the other one, has, or vice versa, or you have both enough to make it even more powerful, then by the time you get to the root of the problem, you already are like, okay, I know how to fix it, or this is what I'm thinking. And that's how y'all do what you do, because you're not just trying to help the spirit or the entities. It's like you're also sitting here like, okay, we need to tag team on this. In every single episode, we need, and I like that where you're growing and Chris is already there. He's not like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. He's like, no, take your time because you're going to get there. And now to see where you personally are and to see where Chris is and to see how quickly, it's almost starting to level out. It's got to be really fulfilling for you, Chris, to be like, that's my little grasshopper. Look at him grow.
It is cool to see what you've accomplished in a short period of time.
Short, very short, because we haven't even been doing this for 6 months yet. It's not been a full 6 months yet.
Right.
Only 6, or not even 6 months?
Not even 6 months. Like the beginning of December will kind of make it 6 months, but like, yeah, like to sit back. That's the other thing that's crazy is we haven't even been doing this for a full 6 months yet. So we're not at a year yet. So it's kind of like, I think that's cool to remember too, is we're still very early in the game. Yeah. We're still very early. Like there's a lot of room for growth and potential to where, all three of us can be from years from now, so that's cool. But I think for me too, like
together.
Absolutely.
Piggybacked.
I think too, for me personally, what's cool about it too is like to see the growth that I've had in less than 6 months. It's so interesting because it's, even though I've only been officially investigating for almost 3 years now, less than 6 months with Christopher specifically, but actually investigating myself for almost, I don't even know if it's been quite 3 years yet. It's like I've been involved in the paranormal since I was a kid. I wasn't really out there investigating, but I've been involved in researching it and stuff like that since I was a kid. And the way that I looked at things for so many years and how that's all rapidly sort of changed because of my current research and what we're finding out in investigations, it's absolutely crazy to me where we sort of went with it and where it's currently going. Like there's even so much that you don't know, obviously from episodes that are coming out to conversations that we've had, like not to spoil things for people, but like there's even a lot of current things we're working on with extraterrestrials. Like that's become a pretty major play and in a very weird way. So
I have to come
everywhere
back
I go recently.
Right.
Yeah. I was gonna say you did post a picture and I was like, well, I know what that means. But that's because I'm into that stuff.
To being shown visions of a spaceship.
So what is the difference between a moment like that, whether it's, Bigfoot or aliens or whatever, versus haunted location, ghosts, demons, whatever? Like, how do you go about that differently than you would a normal location?
I think sometimes what people sort of don't really realize is that what we have sort of found, or I don't want to say it like that because like we're not the people that have like, oh, we discovered this. Like there's been people before us that have found these things, but we're starting to dive down that road and understand what they're talking about, because what I think they're talking about is very, very real. And it's essentially this theory that cryptids, UFOs, paranormal, haunted locations, they're not as separate as what people think. So you don't really think of it in the sense or people typically think of it in the sense of like what you're kind of talking about, in the sense of you do it separately, like you go to this haunted location and you're only doing this. And then like, if you want to do UFO stuff, you go and do this. And it's like, we're finding that the overlap is actually a lot more common than you would typically think. Like some of the times that you think you might be communicating with a spirit, you might be communicating with an extraterrestrial and you just don't realize it.
That's So cool.
So it's pretty mind blowing. And then there's certain sessions, like there's the famous CE5 session, which is literally directly involved in trying to communicate with extraterrestrials. Which, again, not to spoil anything, and it won't be a full on episode, but it'll be included in one of my projects that I make. But we may or may not have went to just a random cabin for a weekend to like do some business stuff, and then performed a CE5 session where we got in direct contact with a supposed extraterrestrial. That may or may not have happened.
Wait, you said you may or may not have an episode coming out like that?
Well, I mean, it won't be a full-on episode itself, but it will be involved in some project that I make.
That's amazing. That's okay. So between you doing that and him hanging out with Squatch Man, what? Where's my invite? I want to be there.
Well, we told you next year we have our own event that is going to be with Squatch Man in July.
Oh, awesome.
So,
Spirits and Squatches at the sanatorium.
You say July?
July.
Okay. You know, the hottest part of the month is fine. Or the year is fine.
we had to fit it in with all the other stuff we were doing next year.
Well, and for us, there's no major convention in July, so it just
that's
sort of made sense that way.
Yeah, it fit in quite nicely.
You have FCI Con, and then you'll have yours.
We got a few. Like we have the Parapsychon at the Ohio State Reformatory.
That's May, and then MadCon September. ISSCon's
MadCon
August, so July was just perfect.
Your Paracon at in Cleveland.
Why, yes, of course.
Of course.
Oh my God, y'all are going on tour.
Sorta.
You're famous. Mm-hmm.
Not quite yet, but we're working on that.
We're working on it.
We're working on it.
Yeah. The what do you find? And I think y'all might have taught or. So I heard this somewhere, and I hate that I can't remember where I heard this, but I think I really can't remember. But I know I heard this, and I know Chris was maybe answering the question. I don't know, but I'm gonna ask it again. Because I know it wasn't here. Do you think that not so much the time of the year, but do you think in general, this is a new way for me to word this question. Do you think in general, weather, not just rain, everyone knows rain is energy and all this and that, but do you think weather in general and temperatures have a way of increasing or decreasing activity?
Yeah.
I think it can, even up to the point of how that weather would have affected a person when they were alive. Why wouldn't it affect the spirit the same way? If they were nasty and mean when it got over 80 degrees, why wouldn't they be nasty and mean as a spirit when it got over 80 degrees?
Right.
I mean, for me, when I'm a spirit, anytime it's under like 60, I'm going to be nasty and mean.
Spirits get seasonal depression too.
You know what's funny too is like another kind of example of what you were kind of talking about before, Kim, about like these entities that sometimes are misunderstood. There's actually a perfect example of this at FCI. It's not in this episode. We didn't dive down this because, you know, it just wasn't part of the episode. But Christopher will know who I'm talking about. There is a spirit there by the name, or really a nickname, but Nuisance is what they call him. And for me, he's the perfect example of this sort of story because I remember the first time I was there, before Christopher and I were really friends or anything like that, when he gave me the initial tour for when I was a part of BPS and stuff like that, he was telling us the story about Nuisance, and he's like, yeah, so this is a spirit that's here, and a lot of people call him a demon or something because they hear growls and stuff like that, but it's like, that's not what he is, and he was nonverbal and stuff like that, and like I found that so interesting. So I remember diving down that road even that night before, you know, we even knew each other, because based off of what he said, and that's exactly what I found. You know, that's exactly what I found, was that like he wasn't a demon. I knew I felt that. I was like, I don't feel like there's that here in this current space, like. So I was kind of like, I get what he's saying. He's misunderstood. So we have to look at that as well as like, how many places do people go and they hear something like a growl and they're just instantly like, oh, that's a demon. It's like, stop saying that. It might
Yeah.
not be. It might not be. Like, if you
Probably
have
isn't,
evidence,
actually.
actually, I'm going to say most of the time it probably isn't. Like, because too, like, the term demon, for what I'm going to attach that to, is such a rare entity that most often than not, it's not a demon. It's a negative spirit. It's a negative human spirit or whatever. But what I would attach the word demon to are very rare. Um, Hell, like, even as we talk about the nine shadows, not every single one of them is a demon per se. A lot of them they're all negative energies, but they're all not all demons. Some are
Right.
more powerful than others. Some were created differently. Some were human spirits. Some were never human spirits, and they're more of an egregore type of thing. So it's just kind of like, I think people have to remember that as they're investigating, is that, again, don't force the narrative. Go with what you're actually being told. Even if you go into a location and you do a tour and they're like, "Hey, this is the history of this place. This is what a lot of people capture." It's kind of like, that's cool to know, and take that and store that in your brain, but take it all with a grain of salt. Don't, because once you have that in your head and you're like, "Oh, this is where this needs to go because this is what people get." It's like, no. Do you know how many locations we go to and we don't even end up talking to most of the spirits that supposedly live there? We end up talking to somebody else that traveled through a portal or something like that. That literally happens all the time. So just experience what you're experiencing. Don't force the narrative. Just go with what you're being told. Just go with that narrative. See where it goes.
How do you decipher between what is residual energy from what's been there versus an actual haunting that is there?
I think it's. I mean, I want to hear Christopher's opinion on this too, but I think for me personally, it's just, um, and I feel like I say this a lot, but it's more of, notice the patterns, and I feel like as you're noticing a pattern, is it answering something that you're saying? Like, is it intelligently responding to you, or is it just more of replaying something? Like, I think the best example I can give about this like example is, back at the Bill Manor series, specifically the part where we're in the attic and Christopher's under the Estes method and he's replaying like where a woman was shot and killed by her husband. Um,
Yeah.
the first time I heard it, I'm trying to ask questions and get them to answer, but they're saying the same thing over and over again. They're not answering me, and eventually I realized that's just a residual sort of memory that's being played over and over and over again. Literally, as soon as it would start and finish, it would start back over. And so I think that's kind of like, just notice the patterns. Like, don't just dive right into like that was 1,000% an answer. It's kind of like, sometimes get confirmation. Hey, just for confirmation, can you reaffirm that this is correct? And I think once you get more and more practice with it, you'll eventually it'll become much easier to sort of decipher between what seems to be residual and what isn't. But I think it's more about, noticing the patterns. But what do you think, Christopher? Like, what's your take on that?
Well, sometimes even like the simplest example for me to give is when I use rods with a particular spirit for the first time. I'll assess intelligence before I even go in. Sometimes you might see me just sit there with the rods and say something like, "If there's someone here who can understand me, move these for me." And then if they move, I might give a direct order like, "Open them wide," and then see what happens.
Right.
All right. Cross them, see what happens. And then I might say, "If you're willing to answer some yes and no questions for me, move these for me again." Then they'll move. And then from there, I'll go to establish, okay, crossed or open, show me yes. Now show me no. But there's a progression. I want to establish the intelligence of what I'm communicating with first.
Right.
That makes sense. He's like, I know.
Yeah, I'm much more on top of my game tonight than I was during our investigation of FCI, where I was not on top of my game for much of it.
Right. And it was interesting too, like, just even looking back at it too, like the way in which we just do things differently but the same at the same time, if that makes sense. Like,
Right.
and I think that's why we work so well together, because it's just very much back and forth between, if there's something that I'm missing, you typically have it, and if there's something that you're missing, I typically tend to have it. And I think that's really, it's really interesting to look back at and sort of realize that, because while, and even though this wasn't necessarily a part of the episode, a lot of the times where you weren't on your game that night because something was fucking with you, I kind of was way more on my game that current
Right.
night. But then I think, I can't remember specifically where, but I think eventually I think there's gonna be an episode where that's actually switched. I think there was a location that really fucked with me, and I was like off.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember.
I can't remember where.
Though.
I can't remember where. I'm not 1,000% sure where that was. I just remember that happened, because I remember the whole night I was off. I wasn't even acting right. I was acting completely different than I normally was.
Did you know it? Were you aware that you were acting different? Or
there was a part of me that was aware. Like,
Okay.
I wasn't fully out of it in the sense of where I was like, there, I wasn't right. And I think I was even saying things that I typically didn't say and stuff like that. But like, but there was still enough of me that was aware that I think I commented, and I was like, I'm not right. Something's not right with me. Like take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt right now, because I don't feel right.
Oh my God.
It was weird.
There was one part in this episode where Chris snapped at you because you went to touch something. And he was like, don't touch that,
Yeah.
Now, of course, that was more of a protective, don't
No,
touch
right. And that was, I never took it as anything other than that. And
Right.
You can see that in the episode. I never took that as anything other, because like, and that's typically like how I felt about it in the moment too. Because like, whenever I went to go touch that spot and he said that, I'm like, what's up with that spot then? what's up with it?
Well, I know if the roles were reversed and I was determined to do something, I'm going to put my hand here. And you said to me just softly, oh, no, don't put your hand there. I'd be like, the fuck do you mean? I want to put my hands there. And then I'd go do it anyway.
Right.
But
Sometimes you have to say things
urgency,
with emphasis.
it would have stopped me.
Right. Yeah. With emphasis. Like, don't do that.
Right.
Well, I was curious, have you been to a location where you snapped at one or the other, whoever, but it wasn't in a protective, friendly, whatever, like something was taking over to make you angry at that person or in the moment?
Yes and no. And I don't want to give away too much, but I will answer this question without giving away too much. And it's actually in the next episode at the Ross house. Because there's a moment very much in that Christopher was not himself. I'll put it like that.
Okay, Chris,
he was not himself.
With you.
Like, even way more on the extent of, rather than in Fairfield, where he was just sort of off his game because something was fucking with him. He was practically an entirely different person. Like, wherever you see him channel someone under the Estes method, this was without the Estes method, and it wasn't in a good way. And we were doing something pretty major, and I didn't snap, but I very much in the moment actually even told my brother and my dad, who was with us, get him out of here. Like,
oh, wow.
Get him out of here. I'll deal with it. And that's what happened. And so he did afterwards, I think, but in the moment, no, because he wasn't really there.
That's scary.
But I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that. That's, you know what I mean? That's not giving away too much, but that, yeah.
When I think back on it, I'm aware of the exact moment that I was just not there anymore. I'm aware of the exact moment. And I think that's all I want to say about it, because this is going to be such an interesting episode. I don't want to give away too much about this one.
That's where I'm kind of like, and I'm going to be, as I kind of told you guys off screen, I'm kind of changing up my formula for this one because I think the story of this one goes back so far, even before Crooked Path was even, you know, created, that this one has to be told in a much different formula. But if it works out the way that I have it in my head, it's going to be so cool. But just with what happened there, if you watch Fairfield and think that was intense, this takes it to an entirely different level. Like on both sides, because there are particular parts where we're both being attacked by different in different ways and different things. Like it's I don't want to give too much because it really is one of those ones you have to experience it as you're watching it. And but that is kind of
three part or one part?
no, like this is like I think neither. I think this is going to be more of a mini series. Like I don't know how many episodes it'll actually end up being because like I said, there's a lot of the story that has to be told in a different manner, in a different way. Okay. And so I don't want to I don't really know. It could be 3 episodes, it could be 4 episodes, hell, it could be 10 episodes. Who knows? I don't know until I really get into it as far as what because a lot of times when I'm editing these videos, once I kind of get into it and I'm looking at the footage of what we have and I start sort of timelining it in my head of like what happened and how I want to tell the story on screen, that's when I have a little bit better of an idea of this is going to be a 3-parter or like this one. And the last 2 have just been 1-parts. And it's mainly because with what we got, it's not going to work as a multi-part series. Like you're going to get uninvested if I kind of span it out too long, where like the very first film series, Mill Manor, like the way in which that one played out with all these different storylines that were happening, that one had to be separate. Like you wouldn't have understood it if you just watched it all in one go. Plus it also would have been like 4 hours long if I made it all in one go. But that's why I just sort of gauge what it's going to be based off of once I really get into it. And I don't have a specific how many episodes it's really going to be. It's more of going to be when I get into it, I'll know. And it's going to be a mini series of some sort. Like it's going to be multiple episodes. So it might take me a little bit longer to get it out there, but I promise it'll be worth the wait.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, that's kind of the best way I can answer that question without.
No, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away and keeping me in suspense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I sort of go very much in a protective mode in that sense, where I was very much I could feel, and that's where it started. I started to notice things too that were different, but at first it was a feeling. I was like, something's not right. And then once I started to notice the little things about him that I know, and he even started to directly negate a lot of the things we had been told the day before. Like a lot of the things that we were saying were very important that we had to do. He was all of a sudden like, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then there was a moment where it all clicked and I was like, get him out of here. Just get him out.
Do you think y'all are more susceptible because you have the psychic in y'all, you know, like you're psychic and you have those abilities and the openness more so than like me, you know, or somebody like me, you know? Or do you think everybody's just open game wherever they want to go?
No, I don't think so. I think actually even between the two of us, I think Christopher is way more susceptible to those things, specifically because of his ability to channel. I actually think I'm a lot harder for them to do that too, because from what we've found and been told, I sort of have some sort of energetic barrier or shield that allows me to be more protected from those type of things, which I also don't have the ability to channel the way that he does. So I think that's more of like why that happened to him, because his ability to channel. So they use that as sort of as a gateway to do that. What do you think? What's your take on that question, Christopher?
No, I agree with that. I very much agree with that. It's not very often that it just happens without me
Yeah.
essentially giving permission for it to happen, but there have been 1 or 2 times. One was at FCI a few years ago. It freaked the hell out of a group of people when I essentially sat there and stared at them for 30 minutes and didn't say a word.
That would be
She
cute.
was just taking it all in.
Aw.
Right.
Like she was taking all of them in.
Mhm.
That would be kind of scary. I'm like, what you looking at? Hey. Have you ever done energy work on something or someone and it just either you really had a hard time letting it go or you needed help letting it go? Like
I
a
don't think
negative
so.
energy, but you didn't mean for it, or a sickness, like if somebody's sick and you're trying to, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't
don't
phrase the question.
I don't think I've really had an experience like that.
Okay. That's good.
Who knows? There's a first time for everything, though.
There's a first time for it. Well, I guess we should probably wrap up this episode because we're actually a little bit longer than we typically sit. But we can sit here. We can sit here and talk to our friend Kim for literally
I
ever.
could talk to
So,
y'all forever. You're seriously, your stories are fascinating. Your minds are amazing. I love picking at them. Thank you again so much for having me, y'all.
no, thank you for joining us. Like it was just such an amazing experience to have with you. It always is. We'll definitely plan the next one here very very soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all the support that you give us. We wouldn't be where we're at without you because
For sure.
you're part of what like even my motivation is for like getting these episodes out because for me it's nice knowing that like at least somebody actually enjoys what
Uh,
we're doing and what we're making. So
I
that's
do.
it's a big thing for me.
I do. And thank you for believing in me and what I do.
Absolutely.
Well,
All right, guys. Well,
I miss y'all and I hope I get to see you soon.
yeah, absolutely. We
We'll see you
definitely
soon.
will. But as always, this was a great conversation. Seriously, go watch that episode. You'll get to see the awesome adventure we had with Kim, and stay tuned for the next mini series of the Ross House because it's only going to get crazier than what you've seen on screen. Like I can't put that any more like empathetically. So just stay tuned.
Yay!
All right,
Good
bye
night,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.